Welcome to our almost last Women's History Month Women in STEM Conference workshop. We're going to use Padlet today as a way to kind of share out and collect things that you all talk about, collect strategies, collect tips, collect the things that you use or do to help with some of this work-life equilibrium stuff. I thought I would just share a little bit about where I kind of came to this using the word equilibrium instead of work-life balance. One of our alums talked about this at one point some time ago, and I thought this was just such a great way to frame it. She said there's no such thing as balance, that it's all kind of a give and take in different ways throughout your life, and that sometimes the work might be a little more pressure, and so the work is going to need to take some more time, and the life stuff kind of gets put a little bit on the back burner. Or maybe there's times when the life part is time for your priority, or maybe there are times when you're able to kind of equal it all out. But there's going to be different things that kind of pressure you in different times and different spaces. And so it really is this equilibrium and trying to figure out how to navigate and how to make the most of it, and how to fit in what you want to fit in and prioritize what you want to prioritize. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way to frame it, because balance feels like everything's equal. And when you have, lots of things going on, it's hard to have everything equal when there's 100% of you going in 15 different directions, right? So equilibrium seemed like a much better scientific word as well that I think we can all relate to. Does anyone want to share something that they're like, I need to try that? Any ahas in your conversation that you want to share?
Sleep. I think we were just cut off, but we were kind of talking about having like about sleep hygiene and how that kind of sets also the precedent to in the next day, and how that carries over. Having kind of like a good routine and sleeping at the same time every day, because sleep does really impact your health. And I feel like if you have that down, planning, like balancing your work and your play might be a little bit easier because you have all the energy to do so.
Yeah, and we often don't prioritize sleep, right? That's an easy thing that we think we can cut off on either end, and it isn't always the best to do that, for sure. Great. Who else has something they want to share?
I asked a question about how I've noticed men tend to have a more, or at least that I've noticed, men tend to have a more balanced like work and personal life, and then women, especially moms, just kind of are all over the place. And I was wondering basically like how that works. Is it possible for a mom to have a balanced work life and like home life? And Angela was answering that it's usually because men can be more assertive about their boundaries. And when it comes to like families with kids, there's a default parent, which is usually the mom, which is what I'm trying to avoid, especially as a woman in STEM. But yeah, and then the breakout rooms got closed. So, but
I was just gonna say, I mean, these are all things that you want to negotiate with your partner, and ideally you negotiate these things before you, decide you're going to be long-term partners, because at least talk about them and kind of figure out. I mean, some of it will change as you go through, as you navigate different situations in your life. But I definitely think picking the right partner, and that makes a difference in how this works, and knowing yourself and what you want to spend your time on and how you want to spend it will help you to navigate, not being the one that has a harder time. But I think the big thing with women is I think we tend to carry around a lot of guilt, especially as parents, and we feel like we have to take on things that we don't really need to take on. And I think that's what makes it look harder. And I think we're probably more vocal too about our struggles than what men are. And so I don't know that the reality is I do think men struggle. I mean, I know my husband struggles at times. I just think he handles it very differently and isn't vocal in the same way. So
I think there's also cultural things that reinforce that. I think very few men are asked, are you going to return to work after you have your baby? Right. And so there's just this cultural expectation that they don't have to make that choice, that they're just automatically going to be able to come back to work and do their thing. I do think if you have that conversation up front, you can avoid a lot of misunderstanding down the line, because you don't want anything to be a default that wasn't really discussed explicitly. You'll end up on, and I still sometimes deal with that a little bit with my husband and I, and we've been married for almost 40 years, and we just came back from vacation and he forgot to bring some of his medication with him. And I was on the phone with CVS trying to track things down and get it lined up and find a place where we could get it filled near our hotel. And that was the default. And that's just what we do. And I'm okay with that. You just got to be, okay with it, or have the conversation if you're not going to be.
So who threw in the Padlet about the Pomodoro technique? Shania, you want to share about that? I found an article talking about it, but I thought it would be great to have you explain it a little bit to everybody who maybe wasn't in your breakout room.
Yeah, so basically, my friend was one who also recommended me this, I think it's basically kind of a time management technique where you have like specific tasks, but you break it up into 25-minute chunks, and within those 25-minute chunks, you have 10-minute breaks. So instead of doing like a straight shot task for 3 hours, having that complete burnout, you actually space out your work times in order for so you don't really get overwhelmed. I feel like it's very effective because 25 minutes doesn't really feel like much compared to doing a task for 3 hours. I feel like it also impacts the quality of my work, I've noticed, and concentration wise. Obviously it's easy to focus on a task for 25 minutes than it is for long periods of time. So
yeah, and I think there's that philosophy that if you have 3 hours, you will fill 3 hours, even if the task only should take you 5 minutes, right? We kind of it's like if I have to pack for a trip and I start packing today for a trip that's in a week, I will be packing all week. If I start packing 3 hours before my trip, I will get it done in 3 hours. If I start packing an hour before, I will get it done in the hour, right? We fill that time. And so I think it has some of that connotation too. If we focus in on that short amount of time, we fill that time effectively and get it done. Yeah, that's a great strategy.
And
Other
sometimes, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Michelle. No, go ahead.
Sorry, I can talk forever if you want me to. No, I won't. But even just because I tried the Pomodoro technique when I first was starting to going to grad school. And I think something about just putting on a timer for 20 minutes just made me work. And then or 25 minutes, and then it would go off. But I wouldn't even take the break. I'm like, oh, I feel great. I'm going to keep going. So I would work for maybe 30, 40 minutes. And then I felt good for a break. So I don't know what the psychology is, but for some reason, just putting on okay, you just have to work for 20 minutes. Maybe that incentive or whatever was I can do that. And then you get in a rhythm and you're like, oh, I can totally finish this. I feel good to complete the task. So even if you're not someone who's 40 or 20, 25 on, 5 minutes off, just having something, I don't know why it helped me to just do something, just start it and then finish it. So
I think it's that getting started. I think it's just getting over the hurdle of getting started. I've heard people say, if you don't feel like working out, just go put your shoes on. Don't commit to doing anything more than putting on your running shoes. But once you got them on, then it's well, now it's really easy.
think you can put this in with the personal time stuff too, right? Some of those boundaries and thinking about, when am I going to kind of set those time boundaries on when I'm going to do work and when I'm going to do home. And I can think about even just this morning, I was out the last 2 days. So I have like this pile of email and all this stuff, that I'm thinking I needed to get done today. And I had gotten up early. It was like 6:30, and normally in the morning I read a bit and I take that time to I'm not in my car listening to my podcasts anymore. So I'm going to use this time to read. But I had all this stuff and I was like, there's no reason for me to get on email at 6:30. This is not okay. I'm going to read, even though I have all this stuff. I'm not going to start getting on my email at 6:30. I'm not. And so just kind of making those mental boundaries. I didn't get on until 7:30 and read for a good hour. And that's good kind of for me, that personal time. And so, trying to figure out where do you need to set those for yourself, and what's important and what's not can be helpful. Other lessons learned that you want to call out and highlight from things that you shared yourself or things that you heard in your breakouts? Any other ahas? There's some good stuff y'all wrote down in the Padlet.
This isn't a comment, it's more of a question. It's referring to the take your vacation, the part where it says also don't make it a habit to work during vacation. There may be emergencies. Not to be controversial, but how is it possible to separate from the mentality of working during vacation if school has already made it a norm for us to work during a vacation? Because every time I go home for a break, my mom is like, she complains. Yeah, she's like, you constantly have work to do.
Yeah.
So how do I separate that from that mentality?
Well, I think I'm the one who wrote the vacation thing, and it's something that I've had to learn over a lot of years. When I was early on in my career, there wasn't a lot of taking your work home. I was an engineer in a lab. My work was done in the lab. I showed up in the morning, I stayed in the lab all day, and I went home. And when I was on vacation, I couldn't take the lab with me. And so, I didn't work on vacation. But then as I got into higher levels of responsibility, it was, conference calls and things became an actuality. Then it became possible for somebody to reach out to me on my vacation and say, hey, we really need you in this meeting. And it seemed like the right thing early in my career to be available for that, so that they would see my loyalty and my dedication, and that I would continue to be productive and contributing to the team. But then it turned into I heard the guys a lot talking about, well, I'm taking vacation tomorrow, but I really have 6 hours worth of meetings. Like that was something to be proud of. And I decided I didn't want to be that person. Other people also, well, I haven't taken a single day all week. I'm probably gonna, they get like 4 weeks of vacation every year, and they maybe take 3 or 4 days, and they think that's something to be proud of. I don't think it's healthy. And I decided quite a few years ago that I was going to stop doing that. And people respect that. I tell them, you can call me if you need me. I am not going to check email, but if you need me, call me. And I've only been called a couple of times in the last probably 10 or 15 years for something really important that I was the only person that could do. And I have a lot of peers that that's not the case for them.
Yeah, I definitely echo what Pat says, and that people will respect your boundaries as long as you're very clear and upfront about what, it's about the communication of them. And so if you are upfront, they know when you're going to be on vacation. And also sometimes you can delegate, you can say this person is going to be the person you contact in my absence, and let that person handle it, so that you can really just disconnect. And it does sometimes, I think, take a couple of days. When you're on a vacation, sometimes by the end of the vacation, you finally fully disconnected, and then you're like, oh, I'm not ready to go back. But you can do it, and people will respect it. And just be very clear about, you know, early and often tell people when you're going to be on vacation. And once you set the example that you're really not reachable, nobody's going to, you know, dog you or whatever. They'll learn that that's how it works, and they'll deal with you before or right when you get back. So
I feel like there's a real shift, because you're saying, Pat, you're saying like these men felt proud to have 6 meetings during vacation. And I feel like there's a real shift in like working smarter and not working harder with like younger workers. And it's funny because when I'm that was one time I was at the office, and this engineer I was working with, he was very nice. He was young too, but he kept calling me on vacation, and he was on vacation and I was working. And at some point I was like, do not call me again. You're on vacation. Enjoy your time. Just enjoy being with your family. He's like, oh, okay, yeah. So I don't know what that is. Like, why are you proud of wasting your time, wasting your hard-earned vacation to do something that, you know, is not as important to you as being with your family? So.
And I actually wrote that one in the Padlet, have that accountability partner, having somebody or a team or someone that can kind of hold you accountable to not be calling in or joining in from vacation. I love all of you students, so I tend to respond to things, when I'm gone on vacation, or to, log in for an hour here or there to keep up with things. And I have Anna in the office. He's like, I got it. You don't do this one. Or I can, shoot her a note to say, hey, I don't want to log in on my vacation day. Can you take this one? And we do that, for each other. And so having someone to kind of hold you in check and make sure that you're holding yourself accountable to that work-life equilibrium, it can also be really important.
I think it's also a really good example just in general for other people across the team. If I have noticed that when I reinforce for my team, kind of what you just said, Michelle, right? If one of my people is on vacation and then they call or they check in, and I'm like, I thought you were on vacation. You need to go. Just ignore us for right now. We got it. That person will then in turn say the same thing to me the next time I want to be at the office. Thought you're on vacation, Pat. Get off the computer. Go. And so it's helpful to kind of create more of that culture.
Well, I know we could talk and talk and talk about this for eternity. And I think, all of us that are a little further down in our career know this is a never ending topic, and we're constantly reconfiguring how we do this and what our work-life equilibrium looks like. But I want to be respectful of time because we're already past, which we always are on these workshops. But thank you all for joining in today. Thank you for sharing your experiences and stories. Feel free to add more stuff into that Padlet if you want. We'll share that out with students in our WEP events on Sunday, so others can see some of those tips and strategies as well. Thanks, y'all. I